What's up, savvy expats? Are you looking to retire in the Philippines with a low cost of living and where your pension will last? Well, today we are diving into whether or not you should retire in Bacolod, Philippines. And as always, if you want access to exclusive content and a community of expats, that'll all be in the link in the description down below. Alright, enough talk, let's get into retirement in Bacolod. First up, let's talk about location. Bacolod, being that it's a coastal city, is on the northwestern coast of the large island of Negros Occidental. Now, across the Guimaras Strait lies Guimaras Island, which is opposite to Bacolod City. A nice aspect about living in Bacolod is that it's a 1-hour ferry ride across the Guimaras Strait to get to Iloilo. And Bacolod has been referred to as the Sugar Bowl of the Philippines because it is the nation's most important sugar producing area. So I bet the lechiflan in Bacolod has to be the bomb. And so you'll commonly find sugar plantations along the highway as well as coconut and rice fields. With the growing development of sugar plantations, Bacolod became Negros' most populous urban area and regional trade center. And in addition to that, Bacolod is also the largest city on Negros Island. And with it being a vital sugar exporter and fishing port, Bacolod is also a crucial part to the Philippine economy, contributing 7.3% to the country's GDP. But anyways, let's talk about the climate in Bacolod. The best way to describe it is tropical, but not necessarily in the sense that you're probably hoping for. Summers are short and hot, while winters are warm, wet, and windy. But that doesn't mean you should cross Bacolod out of your list of places to retire. The best time to visit Bacolod for hot weather activities like swimming is from late December to mid-April. The hot season usually lasts 2 months, with the hottest month, May, having an average high of 92 degrees Fahrenheit and an average low of 78 degrees Fahrenheit. The cool season lasts slightly longer, 2.5 months. During the winter months, the average high is 85 degrees and the average low is 75 degrees Fahrenheit. But overall, the average temp in Bacolod can be summed up at 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'll tell ya, there's times when I dread the Philippine heat, but then I think back to the times living in Chicago where we would have to scrape snow off the windshield before school, or when I would eat it slipping on ice in the morning. And then suddenly I don't mind the heat. But one unignorable caveat of living in Negros Occidental is that they get hit bad with typhoons. Literally, as I'm filming, Typhoon Odette has already rummaged through Negros Occidental, leaving 4 people dead. So this is something that you definitely have to take into consideration. Especially nowadays, seeing influxes of volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, tornadoes, and natural disasters. And unlike Baguio, which we covered in a past video, Bacolod is a medium-sized city and is not as overpopulated. It's actually peaceful in comparison to places like Manila, Cebu City, and Davao. And not to mention, the streets aren't as crowded with traffic and isn't as backed up as other cities. So now that you got an idea of the location and climate of Bacolod, let's talk about what you really want to know: the cost of living. Being that living in Bacolod is cheap, this is the focal point for you retirees. And I say this because while you do have access to beaches, this is not necessarily the place you want to live if you want to live on a beach or near a beach. And neither are you going to Bacolod because they have the most outrageous must-visit attractions. Bacolod is a place to retire specifically if you're looking for 2 things. 1, to be able to live in the Philippines, and 2, to be able to settle down in the Philippines for a low cost of living. But other than that, if you want to live on white sand beaches, you'd have to look at places like Puerto Galera or Siquijor Island. But then again, the nice part about living in Bacolod is that you still nevertheless have access to beaches while being able to maintain a low cost of living. And not to mention, Bacolod is less crowded than the places I mentioned earlier. But let's talk numbers. I split living accommodations into 3 different categories: the cost of living in a studio condo unit, the cost of living in a small house, and the cost of living in a sizable 2-3 bedroom house. For renting a studio unit, on average that would cost you $400 to $500 per month, or in pesos, 20,000 to 25,000 pesos per month. Or in some cases, the price of a condo unit can even range higher than 30,000 pesos or $600 per month. Now, as for the cost of living in a small house, that would actually cost you less, ranging from $160 to $240 per month. Or in pesos, 8,000 pesos to 12,000 pesos per month. Yes, living in a small house in Bacolod is actually cheaper than living in a condo unit because living in condos in Bacolod is less common than living in houses. So in terms of value, living in a small house in Bacolod is the way to go over living in a condo. Now, as for living in a 2-3 bedroom house in Bacolod, that could range from $300 to $500 per month. Or in pesos, 15,000 pesos to 25,000 pesos per month. And so as you can see, even living in a 3-bedroom house would give you more of your money's worth than living in a studio unit. But this is just an average of what I've observed after looking at several accommodations in Bacolod. It does vary at times. For example, I saw some houses that cost as less as 6,000 pesos or $120 per month. So there are plenty of cheap housing options in Bacolod, especially if you compare it to other parts of the Philippines. Now let's talk utilities. Your electric bill, if you have a split type AC and a couple of fans, would roughly be 3,200 pesos or $64 per month. Now it could be higher than $100 depending on how often you keep the AC running, so just keep that in mind. Now gas costs should be no more than 440 pesos per month or $9 per month. Water should be around 500 pesos per month or $10 per month. And according to a local, water should be no more than 500 pesos per month or $10 per month. Internet would roughly be around 1,500 pesos per month or $30 per month. Food and groceries would roughly be around 10,000 pesos per month or 15,000 pesos per month, or in dollars, $200 to $300 per month. And obviously, if you aren't picky, you can opt for local foods like barbecue, fish, rice, and cut costs by even more. Transportation would range from 2,000 to 3,000 pesos per month, or in dollars, $40 to $60 per month. And speaking of transportation, the main modes of transportation is jeepneys, tricycles, taxis, and Grab. So this bit of cost of living shouldn't cost much depending on how much you travel. Next, for entertainment, that would likely be no more than 4,000 pesos per month or $80 per month. So all in all, if you are renting a studio unit, your total cost of living in Bacolod would be $1,050 per month or 52,500 pesos per month. And yes, I calculated this based on the scenario that you're spending extra per month. Of course, if you find a cheaper accommodation, eat the same as the locals, and pinch a few more pennies, your expenses would be easily way lower than this. I'm talking, if you plan it out right, below $900 per month. On to the next category, your total cost of living if you're staying in a small house would be $790 or 39,500 pesos per month. Yes, this category is cheaper than the last because living in a small house in Bacolod is cheaper than living in a condo. And lastly, if you're staying in a 2-3 bedroom house, your total cost of living would be $1,050 per month or 52,500 pesos per month. So it's about the same as if you're living in a condo, but then again, you're getting more value with a bigger living space. And once again, your total cost of living could be lower than these numbers. But now that we covered all the numbers, let me show you guys some examples of affordable accommodations. So here's an example of a 3-bedroom house in Bacolod going for 20,000 pesos or $400 per month. As you can see off the bat, it's not only a modern looking house, but it's also a 2-story. Here's an angle of the front of the house. And walking inside the house, this is a look at the living room. From here, you can see the staircase that leads to the 3 bedrooms. And from this view, you can better see the full staircase. And switching angles, you can see the corner window there. And upstairs, straight ahead, that is the 1st bedroom. And to the left is the 2nd bedroom. As you can see, the bedroom is a reasonable size and is up to date. And here is the 2nd bedroom, which is just like the last. It's a decent size and modern. In this picture here, we have the 1st bedroom, which is in good shape from the looks of it. And here is the 2nd bedroom, which also looks good. Now, let me show you a 2-bedroom house, which is going for even cheaper at 12,000 pesos or $240 per month. For that, you're getting 100 square meters or 1,076 square feet, and it's in a gated community. So they don't show the outside of the house, but as you can see in the inside, it's spacious. There in the front, that staircase leads up to the 2 bedrooms, and looking to the right, there is space for the living room, and you can see the kitchen down there. From this perspective, you can see the size of the house along with a 6-person dining table. Here's another view of the staircase, and walking into the kitchen. As rental is unfurnished, everything is pretty bare at the moment. Walking upstairs, here's the railing, and switching angles, these are the 2 bedrooms in this rental. So not many photos in that one, but nevertheless, that rental only costs $240 per month. That's pretty cheap if you ask me. And so there are plenty of other affordable units that I've found, and I'll leave the rest in the link in the description down below. Now, moving on to hospitals. From what I read, there's not many good things to be said about the hospitals in Bacolod. For one, I've seen several times people saying that the hospitals are poorly sanitized, often seeing dust and hair on the floors. And at the moment, due to the virus, hospital occupancy is high and there's a shortage of healthcare workers. And as for some of the hospitals in Bacolod, there is South Bacolod General Hospital and Medical Center, Metro Bacolod Hospital and Medical Center, and Bacolod Queen of Mercy Hospital. But I just want to show you guys some of the reviews on some of these hospitals. Jonathan says, when a hospital refuses an emergency patient simply because they don't have down payment, you know that the hospital no longer cares about life. Shut this hospital down. You don't deserve to be operating on this earth. Meanwhile, Yassine says, worst private hospital ever. Even doctors are led by money. They force admission to my son, pretending safety precaution, and charge him $25K for one night just for antibiotic, including cleaning and disinfecting room, but it was very dirty room, hair on the floor and dusty CR. CR is bathroom. They even make you pay the cleaning products, gloves, etc. And pillows, yes, pillows. The business machine is all set in place. This is all business matters. Such a shame, especially for doctors who lie and scare you, pretending to care. What a shame. And so that was just a couple of reviews on one of the hospitals that I looked at. I can imagine that there were similar comments across the board. A lot of the hospitals that I looked at were low ranking hospitals, maybe around like 1 stars, rarely even above 3. And especially because there's a lack of funding from the government for hospitals here in the Philippines. So some of these hospitals in the province will provide mediocre service, meanwhile trying to nickel and dime you wherever they can. I even saw one comment that said that the emergency room didn't even have an emergency button to call the nurse. But anyways, enough said, let's move on. Now, moving on to attractions in Bacolod City. Starting with arguably the most popular attraction in Bacolod, we have the Ruins. The Ruins is famous for not only its historical architecture, being that it was built in 1920, but also the tragic love story behind this mansion. Don Mariano, a wealthy sugar baron, was in love with a woman named Maria. They had 10 kids together, and while Don's wife was pregnant with their 11th child, she slipped in the bathroom and bled profusely. And so Maria ended up having a miscarriage and died due to that accident. And so it goes without saying, but Don was ruined. But out of his broken heart, he built and commemorated the mansion to his late wife. And fast forward to 1942, a Filipino soldier burned down Don's mansion in retaliation to him allowing in Japanese soldiers. But as you can see, many still admire the history and architecture of the mansion to this day, even to the point to where it's referred to as the Taj Mahal of Negros Oriental. The next popular attraction in Bacolod is Capitol Park in Lagoon. This provincial park features an artificial lagoon, but the main landmark is the Negros Occidental Provincial Capitol Building. It is the official seat of the governor of the province. Today, the park is a haven for people holding picnics, jogging, doing aerobics, and entertainment activities. And at the center of the park is the man-made lagoon containing live tilapia fish. And in addition to that, there's also live band and orchestras that provide free entertainment in the open air. So Capitol Park and Lagoon makes a great place to get a breath of fresh air and walk around. Moving on to the third attraction in Bacolod, we have Lagunawan Island. Lagunawan Island is about an hour drive from Bacolod City, but it makes a great escape from the hustle and bustle. But what should you expect out of the island? Well, Lagunawan Island is a 13-hectare banana-shaped island off the coast of Cadiz, which is north of Bacolod City. The island consists of pristine white sand beaches, turquoise waters, and a family-ran beach resort. And of course, we can't forget that Lagunawan hosts Asia's largest floating bar, Tahai Floating Bar. This would make a great place to enjoy the water, take in the tropical weather, and get a drink. And although Lagunawan is a popular getaway for locals, the same is the case for tourists as well. And while you're at Lagunawan Island, you can stay at Lagunawan Island Resort and Spa with the rooms starting as low as $60 per night. And if you want rooms with all that jazz like TV and ACs, it goes up from there. And as for the price to get into the island, the standard entrance fee is 350 pesos or $7 per person. That breaks down into a 180 pesos entrance fee, 20 pesos terminal fee, and 150 pesos return boat ticket. So Lagunawan would make a great place to get away from the city and enjoy the true Philippine lifestyle that everyone comes here for. And the last attraction that we'll cover is the Mascara Festival. Mas meaning many, Cara meaning faces, translate to the Many Faces Festival. The Mascara Festival, one of the biggest festivals in all of the Philippines, has been giving visitors a chance to party and have fun for over 30 years now. And this large festival is celebrated every October. At the center of this festival, you'll find many dancers and performers wearing large, smiling, vibrant masks. The colorful colors combined with the music and dancing makes for a good time. Well, depending on what you consider a good time. And so there are plenty of other attractions in Bacolod. For example, you have Negros Museum, Balay Negrense, San Sebastian Cathedral, and several more. But to sum up the majority of the attractions in Bacolod, they mostly consist of historical sites and antiques. Now let's move on to Bacolod's demographic and people. With a population of 560,000 and climbing, the majority of Bacolod's locals speak Ilonggo, which is the predominant language in Negros Occidental. Tagalog and English is also understood, although not as commonly used as other provinces in the Philippines. And the people, referred to as Bacolodnans, I believe is how you pronounce it, are smiling, hospitable people. The main religion of the area is Roman Catholicism. And as far as crime rate in Bacolod, it's categorized as moderate. Most locals will say that living in Bacolod is relatively safe, so as long as you don't go into the dark areas. When walking around downtown, be sure to monitor your belongings as there are thieves and pickpocketers. I also read that there were cases of rape and murder, so also be aware of that too. Nevertheless, on the bright side, crimes have come down by 40% in 2020. All in all, at the end of the day, just be aware of your surroundings, avoid sketchy areas and situations. And lastly, let's talk about the pros and cons of living in Bacolod. The pros are the people are kind and hospitable, the cost of living is very low, you have access to beaches outside of Bacolod City, Bacolod is less congested than most other provinces in the Philippines, traffic isn't bad, there are still modern conveniences and malls like SM City Bacolod, and Bacolod is in central Philippines, so it's not far from places like Iloilo, Cebu City, and Panay Island. And lastly, Bacolod is infamous for the delicious Bacolod Inasal barbecue chicken. Now for the cons of retiring in Bacolod. First off, Bacolod gets a lot of rain. The downtown area has litter in almost every corner. Most of the hospitals are likely not adequate for your standards. The hospitals are hardly sanitized and dirty. There have been cases of rape and murder. There are dens of thieves and addicts in certain areas in the city. Pickpocketing is always something that you'll have to watch out for, especially as a foreigner. And lastly, typhoons hit that region hard. And so there you have it, savvy expats. That is an in-depth review on retirement in Bacolod. And I will say this, Bacolod is not the most glamorous place to retire that you may have dreamed of, but with all those expenses of living in Bacolod comes with the main plus, which is the cost of living. Now, it's really up to you to decide whether or not it's worth retiring in Bacolod and if it meets your criteria as a place to retire. Does the low cost of living compensate for all those downsides? And if you want to see a video on retirement in Puerto Golero next, which is known for its beaches, let's get this video to 1,000 likes. And so thank you, savvy expats, for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. God bless.